Hey everyone, and welcome back to Bird Talk with Terance Mathis. I'm William Brandon. Please turn on those notifications for the Atlanta Sports Unlimited YouTube channel because you don't want to miss an episode of what this guy has to say.
Woo, and I have to say a lot. Before we even start, William,
Mhm.
uh, something just came to mind. I was listening to Venus Williams talk in the interview, the great tennis player at the French Open, and she was talking about which something that made sense, and I really didn't think about it as much as until she said it. She said, basically paraphrasing, she said, all of you who ask me questions and who are doubting um, our abilities and always critiquing us, she said, you couldn't hold a candle to me. You couldn't play tennis with me. And you're going to write about us, how good we are and how bad we are. And I looked at that and going, I've been saying this for years about reporters. How can you critique? How can you analyze if you don't know? You looking at something and you looking at it objectively and saying that doesn't look good. That doesn't look right. How do you know? What are you comparing it to? Are you comparing it to your experiences, or are you just comparing it to what you see somebody else is doing? So she dropped the mic with that one. I was like, okay, yes, okay, I
She
agree with
did,
you. Yeah.
but you trying to
So I
tell
just
me
wanted to get that out.
you trying to tell me though my middle school football knowledge can't play an impact?
No, but see, let me tell you the difference. Let me tell you the difference. Someone like you who has conversations with me all the time, you can see it from a different perspective. You see what I'm saying? Because you get the from the locker room, from the home, from the community, from one-on-one perspective, all these things, you get it that way. A lot of reporters don't get it that way. They just get from what they see objectively or what they read from what other people write. So there's there are some very special circumstances when you have a relationship with an athlete, not just in front of the camera, in front of the mic, or in front of the tape recorder, but away from all that. And it's a different, you get a different perspective and a different respect, not for the game, but just for the athlete in general.
Yeah, I definitely think it's important for all journalists to take their craft seriously and make sure they understand well round. Besides, like you say, just looking at it maybe from a perspective, maybe just looking at
Right.
it on television. And I could say from those tennis journalists, not all of them, but there are some
No.
that, and it's like the same at the Super Bowl sometimes when they ask crazy questions that have
Yes.
nothing to do with,
Yes. Had nothing to do with football.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So speaking of football, let's go
Okay.
ahead and hop into it. One of the biggest issues facing the Atlanta Falcons last season was that defense. What's it going to take for the Falcons defense to crack the top 15, maybe even the top 10 next season?
You know what? Here's a veteran defense, and what Pease has done already, move some people around, move Dante Fowler around. I still think you need to move Deion Jones on the edge as an outside linebacker and get that big thick neck linebacker that you need in the middle to plug up things. But I was looking at some interesting numbers. Listen. I want you to listen to this.
Okay.
All right, points against last year, the Falcons gave up pretty much 26 points. That ranked 19. So you're not far from being in the top 15 defense wise. And then, but here's a stat that is two stats that are very concerning to me, and that's third down. You gave up 41% in third down percentage, which is very high in the NFL. If you can get that below 40, that means you're getting off the field. That's less chances for the offense for the other offense to score, and more chances for your offense to score points. And then red zones, 65%. That's a high percentage given up. And if you can get that one under 60, you're doing a great job. So those two areas right there um, will increase maybe 4, 5, 6 spots in total defense. Now, if you go look at the teams that are in total defense last year, those that were in the top 15, I think of 8, 9 of them made the playoffs, and that's what we want. And offensively, we're there. I think offensively, we have to run the ball better. We only average 95 yards a game. If you get that to about 120, 125, you have a chance to win. But I think this team defensively, I think there's some fresh blood that's going to get a lot of playing time. That's going to give it some energy. I think that the defense played with a lack of energy. So I think with Pease and his energy and his his mad dog mentality is going to bring a different mentality to the defense. There's three guys that I like that I think that's going to play early, and that's Grant, the safety from UCF.
Mhm.
I think he'll play right away. Graham, the D tackle from Texas, and I'm gonna try to say this name. Adito Combo, the defensive end from Notre Dame. I did it. I think he's the wild card, the X factor in this defense. I can see him starting at some point, maybe not opening day, but I can see him playing a lot. I'm not saying he's going to have double-digit sacks, but here's a young guy that has not played a lot of football, has not started in a lot of games. So he's young, he's hungry, he's a blank sheet of paper that you can teach him what you want him to teach him, and he's healthy because he and that's a dangerous combination right there. So here's a guy that all he wants to do is he's just gonna go fast, and do what you ask him to do. So I'm looking forward to him playing a lot, and I think this defense, with the other guys around them, you know, Grady gonna be who he is all day, and I think Terrell's going to blossom into a fine cornerback. So I'm looking forward to this defense of playing better and being probably somewhere in the top 15, top 12 next year, which combined with this offense who can move up to the top 15, top 12, you'll be a playoff contender team.
Okay. You mentioned Dean Pease, as a lot of people may or may not know. The Falcons not only hired a new GM and a new head coach, they did hire new coordinators. Dean Pease is the new Falcons defensive coordinator. He won 2 Super Bowls, one with the New England Patriots and the Baltimore Ravens. And
Right.
speaking of which, I remember you saying that you had interned before with the Ravens. Did you happen to be with the Ravens when Dean Pease was there?
Yes, I was there. He was an assistant coach there under Rex Ryan, and that defense, man, was special. So you got to understand the mentality of a guy who played with some of the greatest players of all time, and then played in 2 Super Bowls with two of the greatest teams of all times. That mentality of I expect nothing but the best. There's no excuses. There's no reason for you not to play your best. And I believe that Dean Pease is going to put them in the right situations, the right positions to be successful. So I'm looking forward to this defense playing fast, playing hard, and most of all having fun. Here's the key right here, William, and this is what I like about this 2021 football team. As you see, the owner and the president have stepped away. We don't see them much. We don't hear from them much. So what that is telling me is this: there's no more corporate attitude in the locker room. When I say corporate attitude, is the company line. Everybody says the same thing. No one gets upset. No one bashes another person or bashes another team. There's no trash talking. We want to be button up, suited up, white collar football team. With these two coaches, as we talked about, Dean Pease and and Arthur Arthur Smith, I don't see that anymore. I see a team that's going to be in your face, head knocking on both sides of the ball, very physical. And now you're going to start to see guys' uh, personalities come out. You're going to start to see different characters come out. And that's what you want from your football team because that's contagious. And now they're out there having fun. Now they're not worried about, okay, am I going to get a lecture from the owner? Am I going to get a lecture from the president? Am I going to get a lecture from the head coach? They can't worry about that. This is a team now that I feel that's going to go out and play fun, have some fun, play fast, play hard, and enjoy what they do.
Yeah, Deion Jones spoke about that yesterday, actually, or excuse me, on Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. He sat down with the media and just spoke about how he likes so far what he's seeing with the DMP's defense. You know, it's a lot of terminology, and we spoke about that before. Real quick, is there a big difference from learning a new offensive language to coming in a new defensive coordinator and learning the new terminology
I
for?
think it's harder defensively. Um, you got to understand there's so many defensive nuances that's out there. Different shape. When I say shades, that means the front four. You're gonna be in a five, a zero, a one, or a three, or you're gonna be cock nose, or you're gonna be head up nose. Are you gonna two gap, or just play one gap? There's so many things. Are you going to do twist? Are you going to stunt? Are you going to blitz? And all these have terminologies to them. And see, the terminology from the front seven, when I'm talking about the front seven, I'm talking about from the defensive end to the defensive tackle, nose tackle, defensive end, the linebackers, the three linebackers. What they do determine what the back end do, which is the four defensive backs. So that terminology has to match with the coverage behind. So it's a lot to understand, because if the front seven is doing something, the back four has to be coordinated to make sure there's no big plays being allowed. So yes, there's a lot. That's why the defense, I feel, spends more time together than the offense does. And but at the same time, I think the defense moves or learns it faster and learns a new system faster than the offense. That's why you always hear that, oh, the offense have to catch up to the defense, because defense, they just go. They have gap control wherever they have to be, and they go. They understand the terminology and they go. And the offense, there's so many different types of offenses, and there's so many proclaimed geniuses as offensive coordinators that they change terminology, but what means something different, but they want their own language. And it's just like learning a foreign language. It's going to take time, but once you get the basics of it, it evolves in time, and that's offensively and defensively.
One thing I like that Pease did say earlier on is that I guess the Falcons might be ambidextrous. They may play 4-3, they may play 3-4. And he said every position will blitz. He said not just safeties and linebackers and defensive linemen, but corners as well. So he said every position will blitz on his defense.
Well, they have the personnel to do that. They have the personnel to go 3-4, and they got personnel to go 4-3. And of course, look, if you into the boundary whatsoever, that boundary corner comes off that edge. That's a short edge for him to get to, and a tackle or a back can't get there, because you got so many things going on inside that creates a tunnel vision for that tackle and that running back, that they're going to miss that guy coming off the corner. They're not even expecting it. So that's one thing, is how you can get pressure instead of you thinking your two defensive ends need to get pressure. You can bring pressure with the cornerbacks, the safeties, the linebackers, and of course, and then the defensive line. And I think that's smart to do, because at the end of the day, you know, each team has a short week to prepare for the next team. So if you throw all this stuff out there and you're doing all this stuff, how are you going to prepare for this team? Because you don't know what's next. You don't know how they're going to play you. So you got to try to practice everything that you've seen on tape for 3 weeks in 3 days. And you can't do it. So and that's what I like. This is not a vanilla defense. This is not a predictable defense. You don't know what you're going to see week by week with Dean Pease.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for the future with this defense. I guess we'll have to see when they get into training camp. As Deion Jones, he's the quarterback of the D. He's going to have to relay those plays that you speak about. What is it going to take for Deion Jones or any Falcons defender to be mentioned with the elite defensive players in the NFL?
Well, I think Deion Jones is right there. He's close. He's really close. And this is what I've learned about the NFL. he has to play with more intensity, more fire, and and be more of not really a trash talker, but a bully. And a bully in a good sense, not one that's going to cause fights whatsoever. A bully in the sense where when he makes a play, he gets up and he yells, and he has to be all over the field. That's what Ray Lewis did in his defense. He ran sideline to sideline and hit you. And when he got up, he put his chest out, and you knew that he made a play. And you know, that what made Ray Lewis one of the greatest linebackers of all time, because before before the ball is even snapped, you had to worry about where he was. And then when the ball was snapped, you had to worry about where he is. And then when the ball, when the play is over with, you gotta hope you have all your faculties in order. So and that's the thing. And I think Deion can do that. I think Deion Jones can really do that with this defense. I think, like I said earlier, I think Dean Pease, I think Arthur Smith going to allow them to play with some attitude, because look where Dean Pease came from. We mentioned the Baltimore Ravens. So that's how he wants them to play, execute, be assignment and alignment, but play with some energy, with some fierce competitiveness, and strike people hard.
Yeah, Arthur Smith didn't just find Dean Pease. They coached together, as you said, in Tennessee. Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator, and Dean Pease was the defensive coordinator. He did retire, but he came back out because he wanted to coach with Arthur Smith. And the previous two times after he came back from retirement, that team did win a Super Bowl. That was the
Yeah.
Patriots, Ravens. And like you said, he did coach some great athletes: Teddy
Right.
Bruschi, Mike Vrabel,
Mm-hmm.
Ray Lewis, Terrell
Mm-hmm.
Suggs, Ed
Right.
Reed.
Right.
Those are some greats, all-time
A,
greats.
a lot. So he's seen some of the best. He's seen Hall of Famers. He's coached Hall of Famers, and that's the thing. And when you have that kind of resume behind you, players gonna believe in you. Players gonna trust you, and that's been the past. And that's been the problem in the past. I felt that there wasn't trust between players and coaches and players. But here's a guy that you have to trust. He has 2 Super Bowl rings.
Yeah.
He's coached Hall of Famers. So he has a resume that's second to none. And so you gotta believe in him and you gotta trust him, because he's done it, and he's done it with some great players, and you have to trust it and go with it.
Do you see any comparisons from your defensive teammates to the current Falcons have now?
You know what? It, I've been trying to, but that 98 team across the board, especially defensively, they had their own little thing. You know what I'm saying? Everybody had their own little they had their own little selfishness, but in the framework of what we did defensively. From Cornelius Bennett to Ray Buchanan to Eugene Robinson to Ronnie Bradford to Chuck Smith to um, Archambault, to all those guys. They've had their own things. Where William White, they had their own things with who they were, but they did it in the framework of the defense, which what made that defense so good.
Okay. All right. Um, Let me ask you this. It's a tough one. Who is your starting 11 on defense going into training camp? Not the season, people, but just going into training camp right now. Who do you have as the starting 11 for the Falcons D?
Well, I got Davidson at the defensive tackle, Grady at the defensive tackle. Um, I want to see my man AO at defensive end. Uh, then your linebackers is it Akunale?
Oh yeah. You're talking about Foye.
Yeah, yeah. He led the team in tackles last year. He'll be there. You got Fowler, you got Deion Jones. And then that secondary, you got Terrell, you got the safety that came over from the Raiders. We got the draft pick. So let me tell you, this is a defense that has a mixture that I like. You have veteran guys that's been to the Pro Bowl. You have young guys that want to go to the Pro Bowl. And then you have younger guys that don't know any better. That just and that's what you want, because now you got a mixture of guys where each one of them pulls each other up instead of just looking around waiting to see, okay, I'm gonna wait to see what he's gonna do. Well, I'm gonna wait and see what's gonna happen. You got guys who want to be great at what they do, so they want to make plays, and that's how you put together a good defense. Guys, you put 11 individuals on the field that wants to be great in the framework of what we do defensively, and then you have become a great defense.
And this has been a great defensive talk with you. And I'm sure the fans want to know, how does Terance Mathis know so much about defense? He was a wide receiver in the NFL. Of course, he played against defenders, but how do you know so much?
Let me give you my history. Let me give you my history. I played quarterback in high school. I was recruited as a quarterback in college. So my freshman year, my sophomore year, I was always in the quarterback meeting rooms, learning fronts, learning coverages, learning learning schemes, learning blitzes, where it's coming from, knowing hot breaks, all these things. Even though I was a receiver for 4 years, but the first 2 years I was never in the receiver meeting room. I was always in the quarterback meeting room because I was like third on the depth chart as quarterback. So that's how I learned defense. So then when I got to the NFL as a rookie with the New York Jets, we had to scout the opponent. So for instance, on Saturday night, the receiver coach asked me, Terance Mathis, tell me about the corners. Tell me about this corner. Tell me about the backup. Tell me about the nickel guy. Tell me what type of defense they're running. What you expect. Where's the hot break? So right away, when I first hit the NFL, I had to learn all that. So then as years progressed, I knew it. I knew it. I knew when blitzes were coming. I knew I knew coverages. It's funny because I could line up, and depending on where the linebackers were, I knew what coverage they were going to be in. So that made it easy for me if I knew what the front seven was doing. It's like, why are you looking at the front seven instead of the secondary? Because the front seven tells you exactly what's going to happen on the back end, like I discussed earlier, where whatever the front seven does, it has to coordinate with the back four. So that's why I talk about the front seven all the time, because if I can see what they're doing when I come out the huddle and line up and look, I know what the coverage is going to be on the back end. So that's why I know so much about defense. And plus, for me as an offensive guy and being in the coaching business for so long as a coordinator, offensive coordinator at Savannah State, then I coached high school for 3 years at Pinecrest Academy, where I ran the offense too. So I had to know. I had to know defense. Before I had to set up my offense, I have to know what a team is doing defensively. So, being a coach, being a player, being a coach now, especially on the offensive side, as a coordinator, that's why I know so much about defense.
All right. And back to what you were saying, as far as you look at the linebackers to determine, and you said it should go for the current Falcons defense as well, that basically the linebackers will pass the info back. When you were in game mode, do you notice that, like, oh man, they're not coordinated?
Mm-hmm.
Clearly the DBs don't know what's going on, and I'm fixing to burn them on said play.
Oh yeah. You see it all the time. For instance, how we try to displace the defense is motion. When you see receivers go in motion, it determines right away to the quarterback what's going to happen. For instance, if I go in motion and the defense rotates to the side where I'm going to end up at, we know there's going to be a single high type situation. Now the quarterback knows there's a cover 3 situation, which is 3 people high, 2 corners, safety in the middle, 1 safety in the box. Now, if I go in motion and that guy that's lined up over me runs with me, now we know it's man to man. Now we know it's man to man across the board. So and the same thing is for instance, if I start in motion and the linebacker was over me at first. Now the linebacker's over me before I go in motion. I know there's some kind of zone.
Yeah.
Okay. I know it's some kind of zone whatsoever. So, but when I move and he comes to the line of scrimmage, there's some kind of blitz on the backside. So I know that. And the quarterback knows that. So he knows on that backside where I left from, there's going to be a hot break whatsoever, and he's going to have to get the ball out of his hand. Or right then and there, he can stop me when I get over there and change the protection. Okay. Or you can hear the offensive lineman change the protection as I go in motion, knowing that this guy is coming off the edge. There's so much that goes on that people don't know that we practice every single day to make sure we don't miss anything. So that's just one simple way of understanding coverages whatsoever.
That's critical, and that brings me to a thought that just came to my head. When Deion Jones was in an interview, he was talking about the scheme, and he said he has to do certain things to try and remember. He was like, I guess, giving an example. He was like, we'll say Atlanta, I guess, would be the play call, but he was like, he would remember the T stood for tight ends in motion or something.
Right.
Is there anything you could give us that maybe y'all did like that in the past? Like, I mean, what did you do to try to help make yourself remember how the scheme, maybe the defensive scheme was set up, or maybe even on offense?
Well, for instance, I can break it down to you this way. If I'm lined up whatsoever, and this is how we know coverages. We read the three linebackers, okay? If there's three linebackers lined up behind the defensive line evenly inside the box, there's probably going to be two safeties in the middle of the field, okay? So now, if there's three linebackers and both of them are outside the box, there's still going to be some kind of umbrella coverage, because now those two linebackers are getting into what we call the flats. And so now you got four deep behind you. Okay. Now, if I'm lined up and now you see two linebackers and one is on the line of scrimmage or one is displaced, we know there's going to be a single high, because now one is going to play the flats. And I don't care what, if the safety show two and a linebacker is displaced, somebody's going to have to replace that linebacker if he blitzes. So now we know there's some kind of one high, or what we call three deep with a single safety in the middle. So we see those things that way. And then when you see a linebacker, there's three linebackers. Then when you see one creep on the line of scrimmage, and you see a safety come creeping up almost the same depth of where that linebacker left, you know there's a blitz coming. It could be both of them coming at the same time, but we know there's a blitz coming. It could be them two to that side, the safety and the linebacker to that side, or it could be the linebacker and the middle backer. You see what I'm saying? So we know there's going to be at least two coming from that side. So it sounds complicated, but it's really not. If we was on the field and I had people lined up and I showed it to you, you'll go, oh, that makes a lot of sense now. But that's just the layman elementary terms that I try to give it to you. And that's how we know. And then sometimes, if I'm in the slot, if I'm lined up in the slot and the guy's over my head and he's inching to the inside and he's looking inside, I'm telling the quarterback right now, hot. Let him know that I'm hot, because this guy's coming off my face. And then I'm watching the safety come down to try to cover me. So right now, and that's how we alert each other.
Wow. Well, people, you definitely see Terance Mathis knows his defense, and there's no question about that.
Well, hit the offensive line.
You there? All right. There you
go. I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Well, we're almost at that time of the show anyway, so it's great that that we're having these issues at the end of the show and not at the beginning. Can you give us a throwback? You got a throwback for us?
It's nothing to do with football. Oh, it's all about the Atlanta
We're gonna.
Hawks right now.
I'm gonna have to stop you there. I
It's
lost.
all, this city is but about that.
Oh man. I am still here.
Can
Lost.
you hear me?
Yeah, it's cutting out. It's cutting out. I think we might need to save that one, that throwback for another time. You there? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for joining us. You make sure that you tune in and subscribe to Atlanta Sports Unlimited. You don't want to miss an episode. We'll get back to you and with that throwback, because I think what he was saying was about the Atlanta Hawks, and way to go Hawks. We'll leave it at that. Way to go Hawks. You got anything for him, Terance?
That's it, man. It's all about Atlanta Hawks right now.
All right. Everybody, I hope you have a good day and continue to be safe. Bye-bye, everybody.